Ooh, testing, testing. Hola, linda.
Are you recording already?
And everybody else. Muy bien. Y buenos días a todos. ¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Están bien?
Bien.
¿Están bien?
Bien.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excelente. Bueno, vamos a practicar hoy. We're going to practice a lot today. We'll have some times when I'll send you off into partner rooms, and sometimes not, sometimes all together. It's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Since we have some people who will be kind of catching up to level with some who are here, just, paciencia, and we're going to let people, practice at their own pace. It's okay. Eventually, those of you who are just coming in will get up to speed. It just takes a little bit of time. So paciencia. A lot of times I am going to, in a good way, segregate you so that some of the newer people coming in can practice with me, so I can go into that group with them and practice, while the veteran folks can go off and do something real confidently on their own. But we'll flip-flop a little bit between all of those. So some of today will be a little bit of a review, which is okay. Some of it will be kind of vocabulary oriented and stretching your responses on the fly a little bit, which is always good. Vamos a ver, I've got to get my, sí. I am going to send you off into Zoom rooms in about a minute. I am going to share with you what the first, what the first questions are going to be, so you can jot these down. Vamos a ver. Let me share my screen with you, because I do want folks to go into some separate rooms for this. And we're going to take this in some pieces. We'll probably do about 2 screens. I don't know if this is big enough for you. Let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. I don't want to drive people blind. Mejor. Can see a little bit better there? See? ¿Es mejor? Easier to read? Okay, más fácil. Okay, ¿cómo se dice en español? These are just present tense. And some of you who are newer just had a little bit of introduction with present tense. But I've got in parentheses what the verb is you should use. And this is just conversational. And I wanted to base this on what are things that tourists would typically say to, ask questions if they were traveling. So I am going to segregate folks off into the newer group, which I'll be, or Cindy, since I'm not sure of your level yet, I'll put you in with the newer group.
Okay.
And once because I don't have a feel yet for where you're at. And we're going to be asking really simple things and we're going to be incorporating lots of question words. So we're going to be doing 2 things. We're going to be practicing our question words. Sometimes we don't need them, sometimes we do. The who, what, when, where, why kind of words. And making sure that we know how to conjugate just a plain old regular verb. But these are very conversational in nature. So things like, will you help me? And you don't really need the will. You might have a little trouble with where to put your me word there, but we'll get back to that, see how you do with that. And you got to use ayudar. How do you conjugate it? Where do I pay? Which you ask that every time that you have a transaction when you're traveling. How are you paying, sir? Somebody will ask you. So you have to know how to respond to that, but they'll ask you that question. How are you paying, cash or credit? Do you speak English and Spanish? You may want to ask somebody who works here. You may want to know when you go into a store or office. At how much do we pay? Okay, so I want to make sure I give everybody a chance to jot some of those down a little bit. We'll probably do, well, we'll see how much time we use up with this. Por lo menos, quizás 7 minutos. I think you're going to need at least about 7 minutes for this, ¿verdad? Yeah, about 7 minutes. And I'm going to get my, can I take this off a share, or do you still need some time to copy, folks?
I'm good.
Good? Everybody else good?
Yep.
See?
See?
Okay. Okay, muy bien. Let me get my little breakout room figured out. I'm going to have to sign this manually. Uy, aquí, woo. Room 1. Okay. Make sure I get the right notas in the right room. Vamos a ver. Okay. Out of room. I got to look at my directions here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eso no. Okay. A little bit extra. Oh, why will it not let me add some extra people? Okay, bear with me because it just did some funky things to me here. Okay. All right, I think we've got everybody portioned off. I'm going to hang back just a little bit to make sure that everybody is in a room. When I hit the open all rooms, which I'm going to do in about 5 seconds, make sure that you have to hit your join button, and please do join a room. Otherwise, it's going to leave you hanging out here in the central area. Aquí vamos. I'm thinking maybe 7-ish minutes, but I'm going to go in with the newbie group. Okay. And I think your join button should come up shortly. And make sure everybody gets into their room.
Two.
Aquí estoy, here I am. Okay, muy bien. Bueno, vamos a practicar. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of a prompt to the first one because the first one is a little bit tricky. There are going to be people in the second group who do get where this goes, but they won't need the word will at all. I mean, you could, but we're going to keep it really simple. We're just going to be focusing on how to conjugate the verb you see in parentheses, right? And how to form a question. And in this case, we're going to need the little word me to represent me.
Ayudas.
Okay, and that little word me is going to be in front of the verb. And you're used to me telling you, oh, you don't need words like yo, nosotros, and tú, which you don't in most cases, but we do need this word me, and it'll be in front of the verb that you conjugate. So if you want to ask, will you help me? Really, all you need is 2 words, or maybe 3 if you include the. First of all, if you're in a setting, are you going to use tú or usted to address the person?
Usted?
Probably usted.
Yeah.
Probably usted to be on the safe side, you know, of being polite. You know, if you're in a place that you go in all the time, then you may might switch to the tú form with someone, but that depends on the situation. Okay, how would we form this question? What do we do with that verb ayudar?
Ayudas o ayuda.
It will be either ayuda or ayudas, right? Ayuda usted and
Ayudas. Me o
you-
ayudas.
yeah, ayuda usted. Okay, and now
Marilyn?
we're gonna need this little word me.
Marilyn,
See,
I don't have the questions. Was I supposed to write them down?
oh, yes, I'm sorry, perdón. Ooh, will it allow me to share? It might allow me to share. Let me put it in for you. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Shall I write them down, I
It's on-
guess?
Okay, there you go. Quick jot, yeah. Sí,
Okay.
por favor.
Okey-doke.
Okay, so the question will be in a formal way, ¿me ayuda usted? ¿Me ayuda usted? Or if you were in a situation where like, because I have had people who, you know, they're at the same little corner grocery store every single day. ¿Me ayudas? ¿Me ayudas? Or, you know, maybe there's a kid behind the counter and you don't have to be that formal. ¿Me ayudas? ¿Me ayudas? Or ¿me ayuda usted? And do be aware, sometimes people are going to drop that word usted, me ayuda, because if you're looking somebody straight in the eye, it, you know, they'll know that you're speaking to them, even though you drop that word usted, because they like to drop words, because they have them in so many other places. So, okay, me ayuda usted, just me ayuda, or me ayudas, okay. Where do I pay? Anybody? We need the where part first.
Adonde.
Donde?
Donde.
And this
Pago.
one won't be
Pago.
movements. Donde?
Pago.
Pago.
Donde
Pago.
pago?
Pago.
Donde pago? Donde
Donde-
pago? Where do I pay?
Okay.
You know, maybe you don't
Okay.
see the cashier area. Maybe you're in a big facility. Donde pago? Donde pago? Donde pago? Donde pago? Where do I pay?
Thank
Muy
you.
bien, ¿dónde pago? Okay, a ver, how are you paying? And I just put the sir in so you know it's a formal situation. How are you paying?
Como
Good.
pagar,
Señor, ¿cómo se paga?
como
¿Cómo
paga,
paga?
señor.
Señor.
Sí, ¿cómo paga, señor? ¿Cómo paga usted? ¿Cómo paga usted? If somebody asks you that, they're asking how, because your method of payment is the issue, right? People pay with cash or with credit or debit, and they kind of usually don't care if it's credit or debit, they just know a card. So they're just going to say cash or card, cash or card. ¿Cómo se dice cash? Anybody remember that word?
En
Dinero.
efectivo.
Dinero?
Well, you could say dinero, but a better word is efectivo. Efectivo, and I'm going to put it in the share window here. Efectivo, because it looks like effective, but it doesn't mean that effective. Kind of a false cognitive. Efectivo o tarjeta. Efectivo o tarjeta. Or tarjeta de crédito. Let me include that down here. Whoops. Ay, 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 ay. Eso no. Efectivo. Oh, and then it should be capitalized, but o tarjeta de crédito. Ooh. And I have, excuse me, while I move this, I've got to get my keyboard up. And in order to do that, I got to move my whole thing. Let's move it back. What was I saying? I'm not mechanical. Efectivo crédito, efectivo crédito. Okay. And you know, that's a common, in any transaction you do anywhere, that's a common question. Efectivo o tarjeta de crédito. And they may just say tarjeta, card. Tarjeta is card. ¿Sí? Yeah. Sí, así es.
De crédito.
You know, they'll accept cards whether they're debit or credit. They kind of usually don't care all that much. Most of the time, if they have a question, they'll, you know, use that word crédito. or débito, but okay. Sí. ¿Cómo paga usted? ¿Cómo paga usted? How are you paying? Do you speak English and Spanish? We don't need a
Habla
question word here.
inglés e
Usted
español.
habla inglés y español.
Sí, habla inglés y español.
Español.
Habla inglés. And we might include habla usted inglés y español. In the familiar form, it would be hablas inglés y español. Vale, muy bien. Oh, who works here? We need a question word first.
¿Cómo?
So just in general, the verb goes
Okay.
first and then the subject. So it would really be, in my mind, speak you English and Spanish.
Sí, because they don't have a word do or does, like we start out.
Okay.
Does he speak? Do you speak? They don't have that word do. They don't need that. That's like an auxiliary thing that English does. So what's going to happen with a question is usually in a yes, no question, like, do you speak English? Yeah or no,
Right.
right? A yes, no question, the verb will be first. But now if we've got a question word paired up with that verb,
That starts
then the
it.
question word will supplant, and that will come first and then the verb.
Okay.
Word order in Spanish is generally for a question. The verb is going to be way up front, more so than it is in English, because they don't have that word do. So
Unless
it'll
I
be
use the
question
other
word and
question
verb,
word.
or
Okay.
yeah, see? Okay. So now we need the who, and the who is not going to be como. Como is how.
Oh,
¿Quién? ¿Quién?
¿Quién?
¿Quién
¿Quién?
trabaja
Aquí.
aquí?
¿Quién trabaja aquí? ¿Quién trabaja aquí? ¿Quién trabaja aquí? ¿Quién trabaja aquí? When you've got the word quién is who, and it's very vague, isn't it? You don't really, but it's talking about this many people. So whenever I conjugate a verb to go with the word quién, we treat quién just like any other onesie by themselves person. So quién gets a conjugation like él, like ella, like usted. It gets a one person conjugation all the time. ¿Quién trabaja aquí? ¿Quién trabaja aquí? ¿Quién trabaja aquí? Vale, magnifico. And how much do we pay? We need a question word. How much?
¿Cuánto? ¿Cuánto?
Pagamos.
¿Cuánto
¿Cuánto
pagamos? Muy bien, pagamos. ¿Cuánto pagamos? How much do we pay? ¿Cuánto pagamos? You know, if it's a place where they don't have a piece of paper bill to give you, like they're just giving you a drink and maybe they're not giving you a paper type bill. ¿Cuánto pagamos? ¿Cuánto pagamos? Or maybe you don't see the sign with the amount, or your eyes can't go fast enough down the list, right, to know, but you just want to know. ¿Cuánto pagamos? ¿Cuánto pagamos? ¿Bien? ¿Está bien? Are we good with that?
Sí, sí.
Excelente.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Okay. I'm going to take the questions down for now, and we're going to call people back in. I need to figure out how I leave my group. Actually, I think we're just going to close them all because some of those
Hasta
folks
luego.
should be done, I think, about this time. They'll have about a minute. Un minuto. They're going to have a minute. I know I figured out how to leave leave breakout room. Leave.
You're muted, Marilyn.
Yes, thank you. Because when I come out of the breakout room, it mutes me as well. And see, I forget these things. Hi. qué cosa. Y tenemos 30 segundos. We've got about 30 seconds till everybody else comes back on in. I think my husband is successfully tracking down Mr. AC guy. Okay. Fantástico. Vamos a ver, vamos a ver. I need to get my exit full screen back. Too many buttons. Demasiados botones. Way too many buttons. Okay. Now that we're all back, hay preguntas. ¿Tienen ustedes alguna pregunta? Do you have some kind of question about what you just did? Jan is nodding yes. Sí, dime, Jan. Oh, and Jan, you're on mute. Actually, I think you're all on mute, so you should probably all take yourselves off of mute.
Muchas preguntas.
Okay. Dime, tell me. Estoy lista. I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, let's see, which one? Okay. How much do we pay? So
Ajá. Sí, sí.
how much? ¿Cuánto
Vamos.
pagamos?
¿Cuánto pagamos? ¿Cuánto pagamos? I've got it up in the chat box. If you don't have the chat box up, click on your little chat box button. ¿Cuánto pagamos? ¿Cuánto pagamos? And use your voice to make sure the person knows. It's a question. ¿Cuánto pagamos?
Oh, nos?
Vamos.
Yeah, Jeff,
The word nos, we don't need any word nos in there.
you don't? Okay. Is that just further
Just pagamos.
clarification? Okay.
No, the word nos would not make sense. Pagamos paired up with nos would mean we pay ourselves,
Okay.
which is not at all what you mean. So, ¿cuánto pagamos? So you're noticing, as I was in with the smaller group, what is happening is, in a question, I want you to notice word order, because when you travel, you have to ask questions all the time. Spanish does not have those pesky words like English does of do or don't. Our words do and don't serve as a flag to say, here comes a question. You never say, well, you might say, you speak Spanish? You might, but generally people will say in English, do you speak Spanish? Do you? And what really function does that word do have? Do doesn't tell you anything about speaking. Do you pay? Doesn't say anything about paying. Do you hear that? Doesn't have anything with the action of hearing. Do is kind of a placeholder word. It's an auxiliary word. It signals somebody in English saying, here comes a question, do and does. But we don't need those words do and does in Spanish when we ask a question. We need the verb. We need the verb, and then if we have a special question, what word, the who, what, when, where, why, how much, how many type words, those question words will supplant that verb and then push it back a little further. Question word, verb, question word, verb. ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo? And the te llamas, right? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Okay, so the question word will always come up first if you've got one, but if it's a yes no question, habla usted inglés? Do you speak English? Then the habla will come first, and there is no word do, there is no word does. They don't use any of that stuff. Nor like in French, qu'est-ce que, yeah, that's not there either. Okay. Bien, otras preguntas, other questions.
A lot of conversation about number one, will you help me?
Ajá, sí, sí.
May ayuden is what we came up with. Then we had conversation about usted me ayuden or may ayuden usted or.
Bien. It kind of depends how many people are in that you group. You don't really know from that yet, do you? You don't really know yet. So it could be, me ayudan ustedes? Can you guys help me, right? It might be that if you're talking to more than one person, right? Me ayuda usted?
Could you
Or,
also,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, can you say ayudarme? Ayudarme?
Qué buena pregunta. What a good question. Okay. First of all, if you do that, which you could do, it's no longer a question, but you can do that to get
Okay.
across the same idea. Momentito. No, nada. Vale. Okay, AC question. Here we go. Ayúdame, instead of being a question, is a command.
Okay.
It's an order. And command and order sounds really formal and kind of intimidating in English, but all it means is that you're telling somebody to do something. And ayúdame would be a familiar command, meaning to somebody you would address as tú, right? But the polite command, if you want to give it as an usted command, would be ayúdeme, por favor, ayúdeme. And ayude looks like, wait a minute, that comes from ayudar, but it ends in an instead of an a. That is a formal command. So here's a good question. And Mariana, this is a great thing for you to bring up. Ayúdeme or ayúdame is not a question, but does it get across the same idea of you're asking for something? Even though it's not a question, even though it doesn't exactly translate the question I have there, it gets across that idea of I am a person who is in need of something, right? You are signaling that you want something done. So that could be used instead of that question.
If you say
Because you were
please.
still signaling somebody. Sí, Cindy, tienes pregunta. Sí, Cindy.
I have a question about that. ¿Es posible usar puede ayudarme?
Muy buena pregunta, Cindy. Muy buena pregunta. Sí. Como pregunta, as a question. So there are many ways we might construct this question. We're going to look at another one. Sí. Tienes razón. You are right. Me puede ayudar. Me puede ayudar.
So
And this is going to be quite literally inserting the word can.
Puede.
Me puede ayudar. Me puede ayudar. Me puede ayudar. It's a different way of asking that same question, but it is literally inserting that word can you. Can you help me?
Puede.
The puede is the can part. Can you
Puede.
help me?
They use that
Puede.
word in that Cuba book several
You
times.
can't, right,
Yep,
you
puede.
can use this word puede as, as can. That absolutely works. So as you can see, como ustedes pueden ver y como ustedes pueden oír con los ejemplos, hay muchas maneras correctas. Hay muchas maneras correctas de expresar una pregunta, de expresar lo que ustedes necesitan. There are many ways of expressing something that you need. There are often many possibilities, okay? But the simplest one for if you've got to call something to mind quickly is, ¿me ayuda usted? That's the easiest one, and always includes in a por favor, if you're wanting to be super polite. And by the way, there are other ways you can morph that word puede if you want to get real fancy. There are others, but we're not going to complicate it too much today. Yeah, me puede. Yeah, puede. Okay. Bueno, sí, Cindy.
Why does the may come in front of the puede?
Oh,
I
why does
don't
it-
know why. With ayudarme, I'm coming up with may at the
Sí.
end of ayudar.
Okay, so there is yet, that word me is a little bit flexible. It's a little bit flexible where I can put it. The me is not talking about who is helping, right? It's talking about who would receive the help. The me is what we call an object. That means it's talking about who is getting the action of the verb, who is getting, can you help me? And the me idea in English would be me in Spanish. It's spelled the same way, but it's pronounced differently, right? And the me is expressing who gets the help, who gets the help. And because of that, it generally has to be in front of the verb. I got a little different situation with that puede thing. With the puede thing, it could be,
Puede. Es que se puede.
the me is a little bit
Puede.
flexible. Because it's being paired up with two verbs,
Verbs,
puede
yeah.
ayudar, because it's being paired up with two verbs that are kind of walking together, they're doing the walk together, it can be in front of the verb, me puede ayudar or puede ayudarme. It can get tagged on to the end of that second verb. When two verbs go walking together in Spanish, like can help, going to help, want to help, then an object
Puede
pronoun,
can.
whatever is receiving, can get attached to the end of that second verb, and the second verb doesn't get conjugated. Just like in English we say, can you help me? Or I'm going to help you, okay? And our second verb in English doesn't get conjugated. Same thing in Spanish, that second verb doesn't get conjugated, it stays as an infinitive. So I was just keeping it a little bit simpler with not putting in the puede, but some of you know that we can use puede, so yes, you can use it that way. Muy bien. Ustedes tienen buenas preguntas. You've got such good questions. Otras preguntas, ¿sí o no?
No.
No. Okay. Son preguntas muy normales. Those are really, really normal questions.
Pregunta,
Oh, sí.
where
Sí,
do I
sí,
pay?
dime.
Could that be donde pago, or can you put in donde lo pago?
Oh, could we say donde lo pago? You could say donde lo pago. Buena pregunta. ¿Dónde pago? Where do I pay? But if you mean the bill or the money, and you're implying that you want to roll that in, you could say, y muy bien, and you got the lo in the right place there, Jeffrey. Donde lo pago? Donde lo pago? Where do I pay it? Yeah, you could do that. And the lo is, you said it in the right place, in front of the verb. These little itty bitty words, and some of you don't know them yet, so don't fret about them if you don't know them, like lo, which means it, or me, which means to me. When these little words are referring to something that receives the action, they go in front of a verb, so that, and you're going to start to see this as you read. You're going to see little words like me and lo and nos and le, and oh my God, what are all these little words? And they're coming in front of a verb, And those little words like le and les and me and nos, they're saying that somebody receives the action of that verb rather than doing the action of that verb. Nouns, which are words or names that refer to people, places, things. Nouns may function as whoever's doing an action, or nouns, people, places, things, may function as receiving the action of the verb. Okay, I see I means I'm doing it. I see him. I see them. I see you guys. Okay, so I is functioning as a subject, but I see them. Them would have to become a word that receives the action of the verb. Okay, and that's a little bit complicated for those of you who are not up to that level yet. So don't worry if you're thinking like, wow, that sounds complicated. You'll start to see it in whatever little novelita you're starting to read. You will start to see it. And when you look those things up in the back, it'll start to make sense. Bien. Hay más preguntas. Are there more questions?
So would I see them be les veo?
No, I see them will be los veo. Los veo. Them I see. And their word order is a little bit different in Spanish, with things that receive action generally go in front of the verb. And we can't ignore those pronouns like we could ignore yo, or we can ignore tú, or we can ignore nosotros. Those words that talk about the person receiving the action, they do have to be expressed and they can't be skipped over like we could with subject pronouns. Okay, bueno, hay más preguntas. More questions? Yeah? See? No? Okay. We're going to shift to something a little bit different. And actually, this went extremely well. You guys did really, really well with this. At the end of this session, I am going to send you the whole page. You know, this whole page. I'll show you what page 1 looked like. I am going to send you this in the post-class email, because as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, you know, I always come like way over prepared. You're going to see, we're going to use these poco a poco, little by little, and we'll get through however many we can. We'll probably, based on how we pace ourselves today, I'll say next week, we're probably going to do 1 more for openers. So this will be our opener, and you'll see what they look like. So you can kind of ponder 1 screen per week, not like a whole massive screens. Okay. Bien? So, you know, we did this screen today, and next week, this will be our opening, the y más. So it'll be screen number 3. So I'll send that to you so you can ponder and look at screen number 3 to ponder the opener for next week. Bien? Good? Okay. Magnifico. Lo que quiero hacer, what I want to do next is to review a little bit of this this idea of using ir to talk about going to do things. And again, we're going to do some small group practice on that. For those of you who have used ir and a in an infinitive, this will make total sense. We're going to have as a kind of a review, not a whole video, but a partial video, because some of the run up, I'm cutting to the chase with her video. We're going to use the part that's just pertinent for what we're doing today. Ir can be used for talking about going to places. I'm going to share a screen with you so you know what I'm talking about. Ir has many forms, and some of you in the newbie group just saw a little bit of how to use ir, right? Voy, vas, va, vamos, van. Voy, vas, va, right? I'm going, you're going, she's going, he's going, or the polite usted are going. And then vamos, we're going, ustedes van, they're going. We can use ir to talk about physically going to a place. But we need this little word a after ir, almost always. I'm going to say like I'm going to go out there on a limb and say like 95, 98% of the time when you use that verb ir in its conjugated form of voy or vas or va or vamos or van, we need this word a because we need, well, it just needs that word. It just needs that word. Okay. Voy a casa. ¿A dónde vas? Where are you going? ¿Va usted a un restaurante? Are you going to a restaurant? We need that little word a when we transition from the form of ir to the place. Okay? Bien. Here are more places. Vamos a la farmacia. Van ustedes al metro. You guys going to the metro, and you don't have to copy furious notes. I'll give you the link to this. Todos van al museo. We need that word a. Ir needs that word a. Okay. And then this little truncated video I'm going to show you, she talks a lot about chunking, which only means they want you to associate words working together as a group. And we always associate that word a together with the form of ir. So ir might be, might need a and then the name of the place. If we're talking about going physically, moving ourselves in space from one place to another, vamos a la farmacia, van ustedes al metro, todos van al museo. We need that little word a to transition. And keep in mind the words a and el will smash together to form al. Okay, that's just what we call a contraction. But sometimes, and this is what we're going to transition to, sometimes we use ir not to talk about going to a place, but to talk about the future. And that's where we're going to seg to in this video. Ir to talk about future, what's going to happen. And rather than using a formal future tense, which does exist in Spanish, most people in conversation don't bother with that. If they want to talk about what is going to happen, they use ir not to just talk about going to a place, but ir to talk about what is going to happen. So not what is going on right now, but what will happen, to talk about the future. So I still need that little magic word a to follow the verb ir. That little word a is still going to be the hanger on, what I chunk together with the voy or the vas or the va or the vamos or the van. And I need that little word a to come in between ir and the action you're talking about. So, voy a comer. Not voy comer, voy a comer, voy a comer. Ir still needs that bothersome little word a as the hanger on. Voy a comer. Vamos a escuchar. Ellos van a tomar un taxi. Mi amigo va a pagar. And that transition, when you listen and hear people, it's going to be a fast transition. That little word a sounds like a very fleeting thing, but it must be there. Okay, so the little word a will come between ir and that second verb. And the second verb is telling what's going to happen, right? Does this make sense to you so far? ¿Es lógico? ¿Es lógico? Okay. And that just shows you what.
So
Sí, dime.
is there ever a time that you would use a conjugated ir and not use a?
In this sense, if I just say, you're talking with your friends, you're sitting in the park, you say, wow, it's hot. Hace mucho calor. Wow, it's hot. Hace mucho calor. Tengo sed. I'm thirsty. And somebody says, quiero ir al café. I want to go to the café. I want to get something to drink. And now you just say to the group, yeah, let's go. Vamos. Then you might hear somebody use vamos. Let's go. And the implication is we're going to go get something to drink, right? Vamos. Then you may hear just vamos without an a. But that's one of the few ways, very few, that you'll hear vamos just by itself, because you're saying it as let's go. And everybody knows where you're going to go because you need to go get a drink, right? It's implied. But if you want to say let's go to the cafe, vamos al café, vamos al café. Or vamos a tomar algo. We're going to get something to drink. ¿Bien?
Marilyn,
Sí, sí.
what about if I'm going to say this in English, when are you going? I'm going tomorrow.
Then you may not need an a.
Okay.
Vamos mañana, or voy mañana, I'm going tomorrow. And now I'm not telling where I'm going to, but when I'm going.
Right. So we only need it with a
And the
verb.
Right.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so the a comes in when I mention a place I'm moving to,
Okay.
right? Or the a comes in when I insert the activity that's going to happen.
Okay. Got it.
But
Thank you.
once in a while, you will hear voy, and maybe I want to tell when. Voy mañana, I'm going tomorrow. Because instead of telling what I am going to do, I'm telling, when it's going to happen. So sometimes that word a will disappear, but most of the time, that little magical word a will have to be there. Eso es, that is correct. Okay. Más preguntas, more questions. If you have them, they're good. Son buenas preguntas. No? Okay. I'm going to magically move my little screens around. We're going to take a look at this truncated part. They have a very good philosophy with this website, which is thinking in chunks, thinking in groups. So their philosophy is think in terms of voy a with a place, or voy a with an activity, which is great. And they say, oh, you don't have to memorize. But al fin y al cabo, in the end, you have to memorize something. To say, oh, I don't have to memorize anything is kind of disingenuous. You wind up memorize something. It is better to memorize which words kind of work together. And a is a word that works together with ir a lot of the time. So we're going to watch part of this and then do an activity with it. It's going to be a little different from what you did for an opener because it's going to be combining two verbs working together. You're going to talk about this. She loves pretty wild stuff with her hair.
Conjugation on your brain as part of a chunk or word combination.
We want you to chunk a.
So it rolls off the tongue in conversations. Doing this also avoids that you always think of the entire verb conjugation table every.
But I'll be honest, you kind of have to get around that. So,
Ella
okay, here we go. Yeah, so here's a chunk. They want you to think of all these words working together. The va al. Think of them as working together.
Al gimnasio todas las mañanas. She goes to the gym every morning. Instead of thinking of a full conjugation table while trying to fit the right verb in the sentence, you could memorize the verb in context already. In this case, va al gimnasio goes to the gym. For example, by creating a flashcard like this. Ella van todas las mañanas. And at the back, ella va al gimnasio todas las mañanas. If you really memorize this chunk, or in other words, imprint it in your brain, you're learning not only the correct verb conjugation, and without having to think of an entire conjugation table while speaking, you are also learning the correct use of it in sentences. If you
Okay, but you're still having to memorize something, right? You know, what you should think about, how I prefer you to chunk it, because I don't think you can get away from the verb conjugation table, really. You know, you wind up memorizing many, many words altogether. That's a lot to memorize. Ella va al gimnasio, but you know, really, it's más flexible. It's more flexible to say, think of the chunk of voy a, vas a, va a, vamos a, van a. Think of that as a chunk, okay? Voy a place. Because the place is always going to be different. Not everybody, it doesn't do you any good to memorize she goes to the gym if what you need to say is she goes to the cafe because that's where she works. Or she's going to the supermarket because that's where she goes every day because she shops every day, right? Va and a place. So that's how I prefer
You
for
learn
you to think of it. I'm going to put her ahead here. Oh, okay, momentito. Now she's going to transition with voy a with a verb. And I need to back it up a little bit. Voy a with a verb, or vas a with a verb, or va a with a verb. And va a are going to sound like they run right into each other. It's just like you're going to drag out that sound a, va. They won't separate and stop between all those. They're not going to stop between va, a. It's going to run together, va. It's just going to drag out the a.
You learn each of the conjugations through one or two chunks. You will remember these chunks whenever you need to conjugate the verb ir or any other verb for that matter. You can do the same with this sentence. Él blanc, and at the back, él va a manejar. Learn this by heart as a chunk, and you'll always get it right. Now, let's have a look at when and how to use this verb correctly. Ir used to discuss where you normally go or what you do. This form of ir is used to talk about a place we regularly visit. So, if somebody would ask you, ¿qué haces durante el día? What do you do during the day? Your response should be in present tense. Yo voy al colegio. I go to school. Veamos más ejemplos. Ellos van al cine cada miércoles. They go to the movies every Wednesday. Todas las mañanas voy a correr. I go jogging every morning.
That's an activity. That's an activity.
Él
Okay.
va en coche.
We use ir. Now here we don't have because we're telling like how we're doing it by car versus by en tren. Okay. So there, you know, it won't always be an as Larry asked. It might be an n if I'm talking about the method I use to go someplace. Okay. So we're going to take that off for so you can watch the whole spiel. I want you to get into some actual practice with this. First, primero. Okay. We're going to use some questions, and these are going to all be ir a and an activity. Ir a and an activity. Something that you're going to do, and these are going to be a little more open-ended. Okay, so I'm going to section you off. We're going to give you the questions first. So,
Pregunta, Marilyn?
Sí, dime, Nora.
Going back to the video, and this is something that has tripped me up a lot when I'm on Duolingo, is when to use al versus ah. I seem
When
to
you use al versus
always
a,
mess that up.
okay, muy
Al,
fácil.
al, yeah.
Okay, bien. I'm going to take the share screen off and put it up, bring up a whiteboard first. Es fácil. It's easy to explain that. You know, you've got a boy or a bus or a ba, and I know she says don't conjugate, don't worry about those pesky tables, but they are more flexible than memorizing 5 words in a row. Okay. After these verbs, you're going to need an right? And maybe you've got a place. So your question about, do I need a word al or a la or, you know, an a los or, okay. This comes up not with the voy a and an action, but voy a and a place. Voy a and a place, or vamos a and a place. Nora's question is, sometimes I hear just an a, and sometimes I hear this al. And what is this pesky al? Well, this pesky al is just a combination. It's a combo. It means I've got these 2 words next to each other. A, el. Al is what we call a contraction. A and el form a contraction. And unlike contractions in English that get a little apostrophe, contractions in Spanish do not get an apostrophe, but it means we're taking 2 words and we're smushing them together. Okay, so a and el generally do not function separately as 2 words when they're next to each other. They squash together and they become 1 word, al. So here's what happens. A and la stay as 2 separate words. Like, como por ejemplo, a la farmacia, a la estación de metro. A la, they stay separate words. A la, a la, a la. A los stay as separate words, okay? A los correos. Bien. Las stays as 2 separate words, like a las clases, right? But the words a and el cannot function as separate words. They squash together to become al. So, al gimnasio. A and el would have to squash together to say something like, al centro, downtown, going downtown, al centro, to the center of town or downtown, al centro. So al only happens when I have a and el next to each other. And that is it. There is one other, what we call a contraction in Spanish. There are 2 contractions in Spanish. And they are al and del. And del is a combination of de and el next to each other. And you can say that what actually started to happen was because de ends in e sound and el starts with e sound also. They just wound up getting squashed together because people say the words quickly. And it just became a kind of a, what they would call in French, a liaison. Del, it just combined into 1 word. Al is 1 word because of a, el next to each other. Del is 1 word because of de and el next to each other. Nora, does that make it?
Marilyn, quick question.
Yeah, that's
So
all it is. It happens because people talk fast and the words over time just became 1. Because that's the way they were. Okay, all right, let's do some practice.
Quick question.
Sí.
So do they always happen? In English, sometimes you have a contraction, but sometimes you don't use the contraction, you use both words.
right? Like in English, you can say I won't or I will not. I don't or I do not. And it doesn't really matter if you use one or the other. It does matter in Spanish. They will combine. Yes, it does matter. You don't have a choice. Now, if you say them, it will just sound like you are talking. If you don't do that, if you don't use del, if you say de él, de él, it'll sound like you are talking like this very truncated word. Like it'll sound funny to them. De él. Will they understand you? Yes. De él. Vamos a el centro. Will they understand that? Yes. But it will sound. Why a él? A él? Why are they saying a él? Why are they saying a él? We just say al. Okay, so it'll be a little hitch in their brain understanding that. It'll be a little hitch. Will they totally not understand what you're saying? No, that will not happen. But it'll sound like, yeah, why are they saying this when they don't need to? Okay. Let's take a look at some questions we're going to do. We're going to go off in groups and ask these questions, all with future, not talking about what's actually happening right now, but what will shortly happen. Ooh, it might be shortly. It might be in a few hours. It might be down the road a day or two or so. When we want to talk about near future, probably you don't want to use this structure if you want to talk about something that's a year away, really far out. But for near future, this is used all the time in spoken language, constantly. Okay, and we're going to throw in, so do copy this down. Hay 5 preguntas. There are 5 questions. I'm going to preview what they mean in case there's any little hitch in what you understand. ¿Qué vas a hacer esta noche? ¿Qué vas a hacer? And I am going to underline. This word hacer is going to go away completely when you answer. I'm going to give you the first example. So anything I'm underlining, it means you are going to put in a new infinitive where you see that underlined verb. I'll demonstrate why that is going to happen. ¿Qué vas a hacer esta noche? What are you going to do tonight? What are you going to do tonight? Esta noche, tonight. ¿Qué vas a hacer? What are you going to do? And if somebody asks you that in English, what are you going to do tonight? You don't say, I'm going to do. You say, I'm going to. And a new action, right? Okay. And you plug in a totally different verb for the to do part. The hacer goes bye-bye. And you plug in a new and totally different verb, right? ¿Qué vas a hacer? ¿Qué vas a hacer? What are you going to do? But you are going to need a voy a. Perdón. You are going to need a voy a. And here comes your new verb. Voy a. So, quizás, voy a caminar. Voy a caminar. Maybe you take a walk after dinner tonight. Voy a caminar. Here's the new verb. Hacer gets the boot. And what takes its place is a different verb telling what it is that you're actually going to do. Bien? ¿Qué vas a hacer? Voy a caminar. Voy a escuchar música rap. I'm going to listen to rap music. My daughter is listening to me laughing because that's mis padres no van a escuchar música rap. My parents are not going to listen to rap music, but a new verb comes in where hacer was, a new verb comes in. Voy a caminar. Voy a, and the new verb. Okay, do you understand the basic premise of what's going to happen? ¿Sí? ¿Bien?
Yes.
Okay. La segunda pregunta, sí. ¿Qué vas a hacer mañana? What are you going to do tomorrow? So I'm just shifting the emphasis on what you're going to do. And again, hacer is going to go away and you're going to plug in a new idea. And instead of talking about tonight, we're talking about tomorrow, a different time frame. ¿Qué va a hacer tu familia? What is your family going to do? ¿Qué va a hacer tu familia? What is your family going to do? And familia takes the verb va, because familia is a unit. It's a single unit. My
it's not
family's
we.
going to.
We wouldn't say vamos. Or
You could change it to vamos. Es posible. Just like we might say in English, hey, what's your family going to do? Oh, we're going to go out into the desert.
Okay.
Yes, you might change that to a nosotros. That would be
Okay.
acceptable. You could say my family is going to, or we're going to. You have some absolute choice of what you can do with that. Absolutamente. Okay. Here, we're going to keep comer as comer. Que van a comer. What are you guys going to eat? Oh, what are you guys going to do? And the to do is more specific here. Instead of just to do, any old to do, it's eat, right? Que van a comer. Que van a comer hoy. What are you going to eat today? Okay. We're shifting from the time of tonight, esta noche, mañana, tomorrow, sábado, Saturday. Those are all near future. Oh, here's very near future, today, right? Que van a comer ustedes hoy. Que van a comer ustedes hoy. Here, que vas a comprar, and I'm not underlining it because it's going to stay comprar. Que vas a comprar, what are you going to buy? Que vas a comprar en el supermercado, I'm telling where. Esta semana, I'm telling when. This week. Okay? Bien? They're very conversational questions. I am going to sink into the newbie group to help you through this, but those of you who are veterans should have a little bit easier part-time with this. Entiende, necesitan más tiempo. Do you need more time to copy these down? ¿Sí o no?
No.
¿No? Bien? Okay, vamos. I'm going to send you off into groups. I'm thinking very open-ended. I'm thinking we're going to need at least about 7 minutes, 7 minutos, quizás 10, maybe 10. Depends on how much time and how many people we got in the group. We're going to keep this in here. It might take me a minute to join in. Make sure you hit your join button. And this is being very, very good about sinking in right away. Bien. Okay. Vamos a practicar. Let's take some turns. ¿Qué vas a hacer esta noche? What are you going to do tonight? Alguien, and you'll have to take yourselves off of mute because it puts you into mute when it shifts you in here. Nora, ¿tienes una idea?
Voy a comer.
Voy a comer. Voy a comer. Voy a comer con mi esposo. ¿Sí? ¿Vas a comer con tu esposo?
Oui.
Sí.
Yeah, sí.
Ella, Nora, va a comer con su esposo. Nora's going to eat with her husband. Okay. Alguien más, somebody else.
Voy a bailar con mi amigo.
Voy a bailar con mis amigos. I'm going to dance with my friend. Muy interesante. Me gusta mucho. Voy a bailar con mis amigos. Mis amigos no bailan. Mis amigos no bailan. Mi esposo no baila. Nunca, nunca. 2 veces. Once at our wedding. Once at his nephew's wedding. Es todo. That's it. Con bailar. Okay.
Así.
Bien. ¿Quién más? Who else? Misma pregunta. Same question. Who's got something different?
Voy a
Larry,
mirar,
dinos.
voy a mirar la cine.
bien. Una película, movie?
Mm,
Are you actually going to the movies or just watch a movie at home?
At home, a casa.
At home, okay, en casa. Voy a mirar, or you might say voy a ver. Voy a ver. Voy a ver, ver is see. Voy a ver is used a little bit more with watch. I know, even though mirar means watch. Voy a mirar una película, movie. Voy a ver una película, voy a mirar una película en casa. At home, en casa. Bien, okay. Otras ideas. Any other ideas with this one?
Voy a dormir.
Voy a dormir esta noche. I'm going to sleep. Voy a dormir esta noche. Sí, claro. Bien. Bueno, ¿qué más? What else? ¿Hay más? O número 2?
Número 2.
Número 2.
Número 2. ¿Qué vas a hacer mañana? ¿Qué vas a hacer mañana? What are you going to do tomorrow?
Voy a llevar mi gato a la veterinaria.
Oh,
¿O veterinaria?
Sí.
Voy a llevar, I'm going to take, voy a llevar mi gato a la veterinaria, if you have a female vet, or al
Yes.
veterinario, if you have a male vet.
Female vet,
Voy a
yes.
llevar mi pobre gato al veterinario. Uy, ok, bien. Ok, otra idea, other idea.
Voy a peluquería. Peluquería.
Voy a la peluquería. Going to the
Peluquería.
hairdresser?
Sí.
Voy a la peluquería.
A la
Peluquería
Oh,
would be the
la.
place where they cut your hair.
Okay.
A la peluquería. Peluquería.
Peluquería.
Magnífico. Muy bien, muy bien. Otras ideas.
Voy a caminar
there's-
con mi
Oh.
hermano.
Voy a caminar. Ok. Con
Una
Con mi-
amiga.
Ay,
Con amiga.
con Susan. Sí, voy a caminar con mis amigas o con mis amigos. Bien, bien, magnífico. ¿Qué vas? Otras ideas, ¿Qué vas a hacer? ¿Qué vas a hacer? Any
what's
other ideas?
travel or drive? What was?
Viajar.
Viajar.
Con B chica.
Voy a
Voy a
viajar.
viajar, sí.
Mi hermana. Hermana.
Voy a viajar a ver, to see.
I'm going to travel.
Voy a
my-
viajar.
Yes. A ver.
Oh, to your sisters. Voy a viajar a la casa de mi hermana. Voy a viajar a la casa
Yeah.
de mi hermana. Bien. ¿Dónde, Nora? ¿Dónde está la casa de tu hermana?
Si casa no. Location is está and house.
Sí, está en. En Taos.
Ocho.
Taos es una ciudad muy bonita, ¿no?
Sí. 8
Vas-
horas. Sí.
8 horas. Es mucho tiempo. Ok, vas en coche por 8 horas.
Sí.
Es mucho tiempo. That's a long time. Sí, es
Mucho
un
café.
largo viaje. Mucho café. Sí, mucho café en carro. Bien. Ok. Cindy, ¿tienes algo?
Voy a estudiar español.
Voy a estudiar español. Magnífico. Ok, muy bien. Vamos a ver número 3. ¿Qué va a hacer tu familia el sábado? ¿Qué va a hacer tu familia? And you may answer this as vamos or mi familia va. Either way.
Mi familia va a la heladería el sábado.
Oh,
Oh.
Okay.
Yummy. Yeah.
Eso me gusta, sí. Mi familia va a montar en bicicleta el sábado. Y mi familia va a visitar por Zoom el sábado.
oh,
Va a visitar, they're going to visit, va a visitar por Zoom, on Zoom, por Zoom el sábado. Bueno, ¿qué más? What else?
so to ride the
Nada.
bike was montar.
Montar en bicicleta o en bici. Va a montar en bici. Bien. Ok. ¿Qué van a comer? ¿Qué van a comer ustedes? What are you guys going to eat? ¿Qué van a comer? Hoy vamos a comer pizza. Vamos a comer pizza todos los lunes, every Monday. Todos los lunes
Todos los lunes.
comemos
Okay.
pizza. Entonces, vamos a comer pizza esta noche. El lunes es noche de pizza. Mondays are pizza night. Los lunes son, sí, noches de pizza. Ok. ¿Qué van a comer ustedes?
Nosotros vamos a comer arroz fritas. Fried rice?
Ah,
Okay.
arroz.
Arroz
Arroz.
fritas?
Bien.
Sí.
Sí.
Pollo.
Ok.
Yo voy a
Bien. Bueno.
todos los días. Yo voy a frutas todos los días.
Muy bien. Muy bien. Me gusta. Sí. Excelente. ¿Qué más? Anything else? ¿Algo más? Ok. ¿Qué vas a comprar? What are you going to buy? ¿Qué vas a comprar en el supermercado? Quizás no hoy, pero esta semana, this week, esta semana, ¿qué vas a
Esta
comprar
semana.
en el supermercado?
Voy a comprar el leche, or just leche,
Leche.
Leche.
not la leche, just leche.
Just leche.
Okay.
Because it's not, unless you're getting like 2 jugs,
Okay,
it's just not really countable, right? It's
Right.
just leche, yeah. Voy a comprar leche. Now you have your list, right? Voy a comprar leche, queso,
Panes.
frutas,
Panes.
jugo. ¿Qué más vas a comprar? ¿Qué vas a comprar?
pan,
Agua,
Panes.
Pan,
Pollo.
Panes.
Huevos.
Ajo.
pollo, quizás pollo, sí, muy popular.
Jueves.
Huevos, eggs,
huevos.
bebidas,
¿sí? Bebidas,
Vino.
vino,
Cerveza.
muy importante.
Ojo vino.
Mucho vino tinto o vino blanco, vino tinto, red o vino
Tinto.
blanco.
Blanco.
Very
Tinto.
tinto.
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Vino.
Okay. Excelente. Bueno, okay. We're going to have the group come back and rejoin us here. Vamos a ver. I've got to find my way to get out of it and close the rooms. Bring them all back. Myself off of mute. I always forget that when I come out of breakout room that I have to, it mutes you coming out of breakout room. To unmute myself. Bring back my chat, bring back everything else so that we're ready when we come on back. Okay. A ver. Ooh, because we're getting pretty close to the end here. Okay. Bien, bien. Bueno, hay preguntas. What kind of questions you have coming out of this session? Algo? Nada?
This
No,
one was
no.
a little easier for
Not the
us.
seal, see.
Okay. Because you have practiced with this more.
Sí.
You have practiced with this more. Eso es. That is why. Okay. I want to preview what you are going to do for this coming week, and then see if you have any questions about, I want to talk a little bit about the reading. This is not the book I asked you guys to have. I don't have it handy with me. But I want to see how many people have their books, how many people are still waiting. And we'll go on from there. I'm going to show you something that I will want you to watch over this week. Oop. I'm going to share a screen with you. You are going to watch a little video by Maria and Cody. You're going to watch a little video, and she's going to talk about stuff around your kitchen. Stuff that's in your kitchen. Vocabulario de la cocina. And we are going to incorporate these ideas into conversation next week. Okay? We're going to incorporate these things, and I am going to have them on a kind of a display board, but do watch their little video because it is entertaining. She talks about both utensils, things you typically use, and appliances. She's going to use the word electrodoméstico. Electro, the first half of the word, domestico. Oh, what do you think an electrodoméstico means? And you may need to take yourself off of mute. What do you think an electrodoméstico will mean?
A vacuum.
The house around the house.
Appliances.
Appliances?
Around the house.
Electrodoméstico is going to refer to an appliance. So she's going to talk about the big stuff that's in your kitchen and also little stuff that's in your kitchen. If I'm talking about electrodomésticos, you're going to hear her use, you're also going to hear her use utensilios. Utensilios will be utensils. So things that you use in the cooking process, really common things. She's not going to talk about specific little things like strainers. No. Or what else would be, you know, tongs. She's not going to talk about really specific little nitty. She's talking about the big general stuff that everybody grabs, you know, quickly when they're in the kitchen fixing meals. So those two things, I want you to focus about those. We're going to have a slide set that I will use post video to generate some questions talking about your kitchen. So you're going to do that as kind of your homework. You may or may not be doing your reading, and I apologize, this is not the book that I have you doing. How many of you have a book? Just either put up your hand or put up the little hand token. I want to see how many people actually have a book. Yeah. Okay, so most of you do. I want you this coming week to make sure you have read either the first chapter, or if you went through chapter 1 because you were just anxious, like, oh, my book came. Either chapter 1 and chapter 2, or just chapter 1, depends on how much time you have. I want you to notice how the setup of your book is. Your book will always have a little glossario, a glossary in the back, and that's going to allow you to say, por ejemplo, oh, ciudad, I can't remember that word, ciudad. You flip quickly, you find, because you're not looking through a 5-inch thick dictionary, you very quickly find ciudad, you go right back to where you left off, so you don't forget your place. This helps the flow of your reading to go quicker so that you can look something up, go back, not lose your train of thought, and get back right away into your train of thought, okay? Because our problem with having to go back to a big dictionary is by the time you go, you found it, you comprehend what it was, and you come back, it's like, what the heck was I reading? And the train of thought is lost. The train of thought is not lost when you're just flipping to the back of the book. So what I want you to do is to do some reading and then come back and make some little notes about, I don't understand why these words work together. Like, por ejemplo, I'm going to give you a for example. When people go into these little books, a common question is something like, I saw this thing of these two words together, le dice. What the heck is, I looked it up, but why the heck do they have that le dice? Why is that? What does le have to do with dice? Why do I always see those hooked up together? You might have a word question like that. Or it might just be certain words that fit together and you don't know why those two words are used together. So I want you to maybe take some little notes from either chapter 1, or if you already started chapter 1 and chapter 2, and bring those to class, right? If you got the Escape Cubano book, just know culturally it is about a kid's experience with being literally a boat person. His experience with coming to America, and this goes back, I want to say, to the 80s or maybe early 90s. Not the first wave of Cuban immigrants, which happened very easily and seamlessly, pretty much, if they could, well, discounting that it was difficult to scramble out of there. The first wave of Cuban immigrants, I'm going to tell you, came through with largely all professional people who had the means to get the heck out of Dodge. When the political hit the fan and people wanted to escape, you know, the government that Castro had installed in Cuba, the first wave of immigrants was very heavily loaded on that side of professional people. People who worked for newspapers, doctors, accountants, any kind of medical personnel, abogados, lawyers, all kinds of professional people, because they had the means to get out. But the second wave that this young person tells the story of is not that first wave of highly professional people. It was a group of people who were much poorer, who did not have the means to easily get a plane to take a nice, comfortable ride from Havana to Miami. You know, these are the people who got a rough it getting out of Dodge. Okay, so, and there were more set rules, and not everybody was let in like they were in the first wave of immigrants who got out in the 60s. It was a different ballgame in the 80s and the 90s, getting out of Cuba into America. It was not always a comfortable trip, let us say. So that is what that story is going to be about. If you got the opposite book of Pobre Ana means poor Ana, and poor Ana is not really poor, but she perceives herself as poor because she's a teenager. Poor me. I live in an oppressive family. My parents really suck. Yeah. And, you know, she's trying to also get out of Dodge, but for things that she perceives as very necessary reasons, but not really escaping perhaps parental authority to spread her wings a little bit, let's say. Kind of the normal teenage, I want to get out of here situation. So very different kind of escape. Okay, so come in with questions next week. watch the video. We'll practice with that, and we'll open up with our ear questions also. And I did not get time to talk about the arte famoso, but I do want to open up to maybe a few questions. If you had time to read about, was it 4 or 5 paintings that I have? Ahora no recuerdo cuáles. Son 5. And you may have a lot of questions, but if you have maybe 1 or 2 questions about the early part of that article and you want to ask that now, I want to give you some time. I am sorry, I kind of ran out of time. I have tried to put in there some parentheses things to prevent you from having to look up a lot of words. But are there any things in there that in the first couple paragraphs where you've got some questions about how that article works or what it's talking about? Algo no? For those of you who are new, this is like a much harder than what I would normally send you off to read.
Yes.
But with a veteran group, well, that would even be challenging for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any specific
it's
questions you want to ask me in the next couple of questions? And this might be a little too small. Whoop, I'm going the wrong direction. Oddly enough, depending on the type of app I'm using, I either have to make it big. I have to either go up past 100 or down from 100. I have not yet figured out why that is. But when they talk about casa de subastas, that's an auction house.
It's fun to read it, even if we don't understand all of it. It's just
Yeah.
fun.
So let me do a real quick, maybe a quick down and dirty translation, okay? Bien. Cada año miles de millones de dólares, thousands of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, ¿sí? En arte pasan por las casas de subastas. Billions of dollars of art pass through auction houses. Internacionales, international auction houses. Mientras que los principales museos tienen decenas de miles, incluso cientos de miles de obras de arte en sus colecciones. While the principal museums or the main museums have dozens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of artwork in their collections. Okay, they're just comparing what is sold for private versus what is there for public. Pero muy pocos logran la fama requerida para ser realmente considerados nombres conocidos. But very few, and they're really talking about few artists or few paintings, achieve the required fame to really be considered well-known names, well-known artists. Okay? Eso es. Como famoso es un término subjetivo, as famous is a subjective term. Una búsqueda de Google, a Google search, búsqueda is the search. Una búsqueda de Google, a Google search, revela una lista de los cuadros más famosos. A Google search reveals a list of the most famous pictures. Cuadros here means pictures. Basado en estos resultados, based on these results, estas son las 10 pinturas más buscadas del mundo. These are the 10 most searched out pictures in the world.
Marilyn,
Mona
I have a
Lisa.
question. I have a question.
Sí, dime.
So is the búsqueda is coming from buscar? It's like you're saying
is
buscar?
Búsqueda is a noun. It is a noun which is devised from that verb buscar, to look for.
Okay.
So buscar is the verb, and if we have that base idea of buscar as an action, it changes in its form to become a noun, a search versus to search. It becomes búsqueda. And you will find this very often in reading. Something will say, that looks like a verb, I know, but it's in a very different form. And this word búsqueda is the noun representing that thing that is a search.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Bien. Bueno, Mona Lisa. And we're only going to get to the first part because then I'm going to go too far over my time. Some of you will have appointments. Artista Leonardo da Vinci. See, fecha estimada. Estimated date of creation, right? 1503 a 1519. Donde verlo, where to see it. That lo means an it. Donde verlo, where to see it. Donde verlo, Museo del Louvre en París. Okay, no es ninguna sorpresa, it's no surprise, que la pintura más famosa del mundo, that the most famous picture in the world, sea esa misteriosa mujer, might be this mysterious woman, con la enigmática sonrisa, with the enigmatic smile. Sonrisa es smile. Pero en realidad, but really, truly, no sabemos mucho, we don't know much, de esa obra de arte, about this work of art. Un poquito más. Se cree, it is believed, it is thought, it is believed, se cree, one believes, it is thought. Se cree que la modelo, and yes, it is la modelo, that's the way it is, it's an about term. Se cree que la modelo de la pintura, it is believed that the model of the picture es Lisa Gherardini, una italiana, la esposa del comerciante de Florencia, the wife of a Florence merchant, Francesco di Giacondo. Pero los expertos, but the experts, pero los expertos no están seguros. They're not sure. La pintura es es el primer retrato italiano. The picture or the painting is the first Italian portrait. Retrato es portrait. Que se enfoca tan de cerca en la modelo, which focuses, concentrates that close on the model. En un retrato de medio cuerpo. In a
Upper body.
half body portrait. Sí. Según el Louvre, according to the Louvre, donde se instaló, where it was installed, sí, por primera vez en 1804. It did not come from Italy until into the Louvre in Paris until 1804. Okay. And as I'm sure some of you have things to do, we will leave it there, but we'll come back and revisit this. Sí, dime.
Going back up where you had said pero en realidad, that translates.
Pero los expertos?
No, back up. Pero en realidad, but there we go.
Pero sí.
Is that but
Pero
really?
en realidad.
In reality.
But is it also but in reality, or is it also but really?
Yes. Yes, we would probably in English phrase that as this idea, but really, or we might say, but actually. But actually, we don't know much. We would probably say for that phrase in English, but actually, which means actually, we cannot use actualmente to say actually. Actualmente means currently, at this time. So if we want to say actually in English, actually, we have to express it as en realidad or realmente. Actual has a different translation in Spanish. It means presently. So if we want to say actually in English, we have to use the idea of realidad. It's a fooled you cognate that wasn't really a cognate. Yeah. Bien?
Sí.
Okay. We'll come back to Mona Lisa maybe a couple minutes in opening next week, la semana que viene. ¿Está bien?
Bien.
Good. Okay. You got plenty to practice. There's lots, and there'll be lots of talking next week with what you do in your kitchen and with more using ir. And I'll send you all that stuff in your links in the por el email. Bien? ¿Está bien?
So, Marilyn, one more question here about the book that you're asking us to make a note out of it. Like if we have a question.
Yeah.
So, what if we have both books already? Do we need to do both of them, or just pick one?
Oh, pick one.
Okay.
Pick one. And you may be more careful. Well, you know what? Pick one based on whatever you're interested in more.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Don't do both. Pick one, and you'll look at like one slide of my ear things to look at. You'll watch one little video. You know, I want you to do small chunks of each of those things, but don't like. I mean, I can sit down and read one of these books in 15 minutes because it's me.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to go through that whole book this week. Take a segment, one chapter, and that's enough. Bien?
Bien.
Bien.
Gracias.
But don't, yeah, I would say take a little chunk of that, then take a little chunk with that video, and take one little chunk. Oh, one little slide here are some of the next ideas that Marilyn's going to use on ir a. So those three little things. And I'll detail that all out in the email. Bien?
Bien. Bien. Gracias.
Okay. That gives you a little variety. So you break it up. You're not doing the same thing every day. You do one little thing one day, one little thing another day, one little thing a different day.
Bien.
Okay. Magnífico. Que tengan una semana fantástica. I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Gracias.
Yes, you too.
Gracias.
Nos vemos el lunes.
Gracias.
Hasta luego.